Good Friday morning of the 19th week of the year. This is one of the most controversial New Testament readings. It's on divorce. Trust me, this is really very difficult, okay? Some Pharisees approached Jesus and tested him, saying, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause whatever?" He said in reply, "Have you not read that from the beginning the Creator made a man and female, male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they're no longer two but one. Therefore what God has joined together, man must never separate." They said, "Then why did Moses command that the man give the woman a bill of divorce and dismiss her?" He said to them, "Because the hardness of your hearts, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, and marries another, commits adultery." His disciples said, "If that is the case of a man with his wife, it's better not to marry." Yes, not all can accept this word, but only those to whom that is granted. Some are incapable of marriage because they were born so, some because they were made so by others, some because they were announced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Whoever can accept this ought to accept it. The last part is with religious life, and the priesthood, those who announced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. But it's the first point. He says, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful and marries another, commits adultery. And you want to know the church's position? Here's where it comes from. See? Yeah, that's where it comes from. The indissolubility of marriage, the sacrament of marriage, its indissolubility. See? It can never be dissolved, only by death. And so, what is that? You know this, so anybody who's watching these things knows we face a huge issue in our society that half our marriages fail. We're end up divorce. I'm talking about globally. I don't know for Catholics, but I think so. It's pretty high. And people seek to remarry. I have to say that that's been the singular largest challenge for me in the ministry, not only at St. Mark's, but also when I was in Louisville, in the monastery. Our monasteries were meccas. People came with very serious issues, I think because of the secrecy of the place. And I think our guys are darn good confessors and got good spiritual directors. We're good at our trade. The monks were good at their trade. And so we dealt with this. I dealt with this an awful lot. And I've got deeply involved in a lot of second marriages. And what we had to do, and I might as well teach it to you. I'll show you this. This I'm positive. Okay, I did it for years. And that is this. When you'd have a divorce and you want to seek a remarriage, what we had to show reasonably well in the light of the church, and you had to submit this to the diocese, that the original marriage, though legal, was not a sacrament. It was not ultimately sacramentally valid because it was flawed. There was a serious flaw in it, such that no sacrament occurred. That's the truth, and that's where the stuff gets rough. I remember a couple, when they would come to me, I'd say to them, do you really want me to do this with you? If you do, I said, I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to probe. I've got to find a reason. And I said, are you sure you want me to know you as well as I'm going to know you? Because I'm going to go deep into your past. I'm going to go deep into your past leading up to the marriage, to your wedding. What were the conditions? Where was this? What was that? See, this, were you coerced into it? Were you pressured? Was the person too immature, too young? See, you're trying to show that there was not sufficient discretion entering into the marriage, or there were inhibiting conditions, such as you wanted beauty, if somebody's on drugs, that would annul a marriage like blinking an eye. If you got proof of it, you see, I got arrested. Okay, bingo, forget about it. Those are easy. The difficult ones, when everything looked normal, and you have to dig and dig and dig. I remember going sometimes for weeks and weeks, meeting, trying to find the grounds. I remember one time I can't do it. I can't find it. And they went to another guy and he did, another priest, and he found him. I'm grateful, so grateful. I couldn't. I tried. I just couldn't find it. This other guy did, and I'm so grateful he could. But that's the hardest part. The church seems to require less evidence now. From what I can tell, I haven't done an annulment in quite some time. But I guess maybe 10 years. But I did an awful lot of them over the years, especially in Louisville, because of the secrecy of the place. You see, it's not a parish, it's a monastery. People could come and they're unknown. See, it's not like a parish where couples are known, etc. They're not. See? And maybe that's the reason. And maybe because our guys were good at this stuff. They were good confessors, and a good confessor is going to be somebody also who's going to be good at this. See? Whatever the case, when I think of the sacrament of marriage, I think of it really profoundly, because I see it as the great witness of the love of Christ for the church. That's the symbol. That's how come it's a sacrament. But I also know that marriage is a struggle. It's become more and more of a struggle in our times, way more. And the impatience of our time with difficulties, such that marriages fail more and more easily than they should have. They could have survived, they could have flourished. But in some ways, when the going gets rough, the rough get going. It just doesn't hold up, and hence you've got an awful lot. There's again the grounds for an annulment. When I'll show it to you and I'll leave you alone on it. But you say, when I do wedding preps, are you committed for life? Do you understand? This is a commitment for life. And they say, yes, it is. We are committed for life. But in the Italian, sotto la tavola, under the table, there is, as long as I'm happy. That kicker line, as long as I'm happy, nullifies the marriage. As long as I'm happy. That's not the commitment. The commitment is, this is for life, period. Not whether you're happy or not. You see? So, and I think whoever gets married saying, gee, I don't know, they get married because they love that other person. They want it to be the rest of their lives. They wholeheartedly do. But at the same time, if they're miserable, they're going to get out. See, they say, but assuming that we love each other. You see what I'm getting at? And that caveat, that line under the table. It's so common today because divorce is so common. And so I think it's the perseverance that goes with that sacrament. But I'll show you another example. I'll leave you alone, okay? I can bug you in this stuff. We see it in so many. How many people are ever committed to any form of life, any kind of commitment to something? You see? I think of guys who go into the priesthood. How many are really committed to for the rest of their lives? I'm not saying whether they're happy at it or not, or whether it's self-fulfilling. How many guys walked away? See? We walk in a time of walking away from things that are difficult. To be honest about it. But marriage requires, in a sense, heroic self-sacrifice. It is, to me, it's a far greater sacrament than the priesthood. Priesthood is a breeze in comparison to marriage. Because marriage, you're with another person, you're with a family, your love has to be deep and committed, self-sacrificial. You can talk the talk as a priest, but you're not living it. Nowhere near with a married couples raising a family, the sacrifice that's required. Marriage, I think, of the two sacraments compared to the sacraments, the sacrament of marriage and the sacrament of the priesthood. I think in our times, especially, the sacrament of marriage is the most important sacrament. It witnesses the love of Christ for the church if it's lived according to its sacramental character, selflessly and sacrificially. That's a truth. If ever a sacrament was needed in a time, it's the sacrament of marriage. It's fidelity, consecrated fidelity.